At our annual Guys Weekend last year, old pal John Milner, K4VZS, brought along a BC-669 radio and power unit that he had picked up. John had spent quite a bit of time getting it working, but it was in pretty sorry shape. He asked me if I was interested in doing a cosmetic restoration. I'd never seen one of these, and since John had helped me with a lot of radio projects over the years, I gladly consented. I took it apart and quickly determined that it would need to be completely stripped, repainted, and relettered. I tackled the PE-110 power unit first. I had it bead blasted and then powder coated with black wrinkled powder. The results looked great. I had all the other panels blasted and powder coated and applied custom dry transfers made from artwork I created. A very light overspray with satin polyurethane sealed the letters. All the hardware and knobs were cleaned and buffed, and it was ready for reassembly. A complete recap of this process will soon appear in Electric Radio magazine. I delivered it to John at the Dalton Hamfest last February. From the look on his face, I'd say he was very happy with the results. I was fascinated with this radio and started researching its history. SCR stands for Set Complete Radio. All U.S. Army Signal Corps radio equipment is labeled this way. Since there are several components to the complete rig, its proper name is SCR-543. The set had its beginnings as a radio telephone unit designed and built by Hallicrafters before World War II. The base radio transmitter was called the BC-441, and the complete set was the SCR-281. The Signal Corps needed a medium-power AM transmitter receiver for short-distance communications. Hallicrafters took the SCR-281, added a power unit, a gasoline generator, and a remote control unit to it. Thus, the SCR-543 was born. The radio set was designed for field use, and many found their way to the South Pacific. Apparently, a lot went to our French resistance allies. Some wound up in Italy as well. They could also be hauled around in a staff car or a half-ton truck. The rig could be operated from either AC power mains or with the PE-108 generator. Hallicrafters made most of the A and B models. The company was heavily involved in building the SCR-299 and 399 high-power systems centered around the BC-610 transmitter. Therefore, they licensed production to Electrical Research Laboratories of Evanston, Illinois. ERLA, or ERLA, was an old line builder of early broadcast sets. Later, they became famous for the first walkie-talkie, the BC-611. John's BC-669C model was built by ERLA. Note the E speaker baffle as opposed to the H on Hallicrafters built units. There were 3 models of the complete SCR-543. The A, B, and C models were essentially the same with minor improvements. The last version, produced in 1944, was the D model. This model featured the ability to send and receive CW as well as AM phone, a newly designed power unit, the PE-110D, and remote control buttons for the generator on the modulator front panel. Earlier versions used a cabled remote control box to start and stop the generator. Here's the BC-543D setup with all of the components. The entire set came in separate chests as well as 2 large footlockers of spare parts, cables, hand tools, and a whip antenna and counterpoise. The BC-669 receiver transmitter was in its own chest. The RF unit is on top and the modulator control unit on the bottom. The PE-110 power unit also came in its own chest and was connected to the BC-669 with a large cable. The supply could be run from AC power mains or from the generator. A small gasoline generator, the PE-108, came in its own chest as well and was connected to the PE-110 with a 20-foot cable. The idea being to keep the noise from the generator away from the operator. Longtime friend and military collector George Donovan, WB5WUX, told me he had a couple of complete rigs and said I could have them. After delivering John's rig at the Dalton Hamfest, we loaded up my pickup at George's in Jackson, Mississippi, with all this stuff. There were two BC-669Ds. One was in very good shape, and unfortunately the other was pretty far gone. Both were complete, however, and between the rigs I had plenty of tubes. The modulator uses 4 6CL6s, which are getting somewhat scarce. The inside of one was in really good shape, but one end of the modulator cabinet was damaged by cat urine. I quickly decided that this was the best candidate for restoration. The D model rigs were painted olive drab, a relative term if there ever was one. Here are the chassis for both PE-110 power units and one of the PE-108 generators. The rig uses a VFO or crystal for receiving, but a crystal is required for the transmitter. George also had the complete crystal set that included crystals for both transmit and receive. The IF is 385 kilocycles. This chest alone is a work of art. I started the restoration process with the PE-110 power unit. The power supply requires 120 volts from the AC mains or from the PE-108D generator. It delivers 490 volts DC for the 807s and modulators, 260 volts DC for all other tubes, and 12 volt DC for the filaments, some relays, and indicator lamps. The most fascinating part of this thing is the VibraPack power supply. If the PE-110 is taking power from the AC mains, all voltages are delivered through transformers and rectifiers. If it is connected to the PE-108D, the VibraPack is connected to the 12-volt battery on the generator, and plate voltage for the receiver tubes is available. Much more on this later. The case was greatly damaged by the kitty cats. I sent it off to be bead blasted and wrinkle powder coated. I replaced the 2-prong Hubble twist lock bulkhead connector with a 3-prong model so I could have a safety ground. The next step was to check out the VibraPack. Hooked up to the bench power supply, nothing happened. I checked with some folks on the internet and figured the problem was probably in the plug-in vibrator. It was a simple matter to cut the can open. It took a very aggressive cleaning of the contacts, but once 12 volt DC was applied, presto. Vibrating away. 335 volts out. 12.1 in. I could not find the proper shade of green-colored powder, so we did it in the wrinkle black. I had some oil-based enamel mixed at my paint store and oversprayed it. I thought it looked okay until I got it close to the crystal boxes. More on this later as well. While it was in the powder coat shop, I got to work on the rest of the power supply. I replaced a few resistors and both relays with new plug-in parts. The work checked out and all voltages were correct. The power supply has a Hubble 9200 twist-tight duplex 115 volt convenience outlet on the front chassis. This is a very interesting story. Did you ever wonder why 2-blade electrical plugs have holes in the ends of the blades? This is called the American Detent. Created by Harvey Hubble in the 1930s, these outlets could accept the bladed connector or one specifically made by Hubbell. They locked in place by twisting the plug body. The outlet could be used to connect a small trouble light or a soldering iron, both of which were supplied in the SCR-543 parts chest, keeping in mind that the generator only puts out 600 watts. For a fascinating link to this, please check out the link in the video description. This is the CH-294 chest containing the PE-110D. My supply was already mounted on a sliding baseboard with 4 Lord shock mounts. I sanded the board and repainted it. Next, working only from photographs in the TMs and a few shots supplied by Andy Miller, KD6TKX, I was able to pretty well duplicate the original chest using 3/4 inch plywood. I got lucky finding hardware that almost matched the original 1944 items. My paint store worked with me, and we were able to much better match the olive drab paint. I created some artwork for the badge plates, and Mac McCormick W4AX laser etched them. The BC-669 transmitter receiver operates between 1.7 MHz and 4.5 MHz in either CW or AM phone. It puts out between 40 and 50 watts into a resonant antenna. Getting it working was surprisingly easy. All components were complete and in good shape. I gave it a bath with simple green, buffed where the cats peed on it, and polished all the knobs and hardware. I installed a 3885 crystal in the transmitter. Using the TM, I was able to hear noise tuning the receiver across the selected band. Some contact cleaning here and there helped a lot. Next, I tuned the transmit coils and got the oscillator working. The side tone was clear and steady.
Well, it's alive.
At this point, I decided to replace all the mica and tubular capacitors. I hooked it to my dipole antenna and listened in on the morning 3885 AM net. Listen for yourself to N4JK and K4JCP.
Well, I'm ready to start today. I got a bad cup of coffee here, Joe. Had a good night's sleep, and of course, full of moisture. You have to take for yourself too. K4JCP or N4JK.
K4JK, K4JCP. Not too bad, a decent cup of coffee.
I worked the guys the next morning, running barely 40 watts, and here's old John Milner, K4VZS, responding. Note the vast difference in color of the first paint job on the PE-110 cabinet, now corrected. Next up was the PE-108 generator. Powered by a one-cylinder 2.3 horsepower Wisconsin gasoline engine, the little generator produces 120 volts AC at 600 watts and 12 volts DC, and it has electric start. When I started working on it, the engine was completely seized and would not turn. I removed the head and let the cylinder and space above the piston soak in PB Blaster for over a month. Still it was seized. It was time to call in my buddy Wayne Kuby, N4WMK. Wayne has helped me with many engine projects.
This is why you have friends who know more than you do. It took him less than 5 minutes to unstuck this and get the rotor off. I'm so outclassed.
After that, it was really a simple matter to completely disassemble the engine and generator. I thoroughly degreased and cleaned all the parts, put a kit in the carburetor, and new rotor and condenser in the magneto. I painted the engine with the much better matched oil-based paint. The first start, using a rope starter, went like this. But the next start went like this. Old Smoky shot rings. Wayne came back down a few weeks later, and we pulled the piston, installed new rings, lightly honed the cylinder, and made a few adjustments to the carburetor. And here's the result.
Where's the smoke? No smoke. No smoke. No smoke. Wayne, there's no smoke. What happened?
I don't know. Maybe we need to mix some oil in with the fuel.
So we had totally shot rings, right?
Yep. Shot as in stuck.
The next task was to attach generator parts. This little generator was a Pioneer Gen E-motor made in Chicago, Illinois. The windings and brushes appeared to be in very good condition. The control box wiring was checked as well. Note the choke and magnetic governor solenoids. The charging meter was shot, so I ordered one from a tractor parts outfit, which turned out to not work. After a thorough cleaning, I gave the outside a light coat of clear satin spray to match the patina of the new engine paint. It was time for the big test.
Start. Wrong meter down here. Ready? Yeah. Looky there.
It really ran smooth. We spent a little more time getting the battery hooked up and tested the electric choke and set the speed to 60 Hertz. I had finished the mounting base as well. The load test was successful, easily pulling 300 watts at 1800 RPM, 120 volts at 60 cycles. Here's the technical manual picture of the PE-108 with its CH-131 chest. I built the reproduction chest out of 1x4 clear pine using an assembly jig. It was all doped out using pictures from the TMs and a few prototype pictures found on the web. I found some hardware that closely matched the originals used in 1944. After painting, the badge plate Mac made was attached. The TM says this is a two-man lift. That means two healthy 19-year-old soldiers. Not old guys, I assure you. Hooking it all together required building one short cable, as George had two of the three required. I sourced the two 7-pin Amphenol connectors from Mauser Electronics. The cable was laced and installed in the fabric loom. Now, all we need to do is hook all this stuff together and see if it works.
the